plan, but they're folded into some of our expense.
Okay.
parts, so that might be.
Thank
the
you.
issue.
Can I just ask one more question? Okay. On the timeline of these projects funded, so we're seeing that you are saying on record that the timelines of the commitment will be on the POA. The city also committed $30 million in pedestrian and cycling infrastructure improvements along the 44th Drive corridor and $13 million to create an intermodal hub at 21st Street Station with designs both projects beginning in 2089 to 2029. The capital funds of these projects beginning in 2029 of June to June 2032. Can you clarify the start date for the capital funding of the 44th corridor improvements, and will this funding timeline present any delays to the city's committed timeline to begin design 28? And do you expect any need for additional funding to complete these projects?
Thank you for the question, Councilmember. So we're actively scoping the projects, which means that we're getting the package ready to transmit to DDC for them to start design. So to your last question about other funding needs, no, we feel that what was promised in the POA will be the accurate funding need. We're in preliminary scoping for 44th Drive right now, and then the Center of Vernon Boulevard project will follow after that.
Okay, thank you so much for those answers. We're going to follow up in writing with all these questions on the details, especially on the Waterfront Greenway and everything else, and we'll also follow up for written criteria on how you calculate and evaluate what intersections qualify for day-lane. Thank you so much to both the chairs.
Councilmember Vaughn.
Okay, thank you, chairs. Really quick answer, please. One-line answer. Does DOT travel around looking for potholes, or does it rely entirely on 311 complaints?
We do look for potholes in the course of all of the rest of our work. They are called in by multiple operational staff.
Okay, thank you. Next. I went to junior high school in Maspeth, and that was 1979. One of the projects was design a Grand Street Bridge because the city had plans of replacing it. Fast forward, we're now at 2026. I'm glad to see that in this budget that we have $326.1 million allocated for the reconstruction of the Grand Street Bridge over Newtown Creek. Question, is this money already here? Because I went to the session a couple of days ago and they said it's federal funds. And my question is the money already in place or are you still waiting for it? And what's the timeline for the construction? Thank you.
Thank you for the question, Councilmember. So we are fully funded for the Grand Street Bridge, and it is projected to go into construction in 2029, fiscal year 2029.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
79, that's when I was born. Okay, Councilmember Epstein, followed by Deputy Speaker.
I thank you, Chair. Is the capital plan for Broadway fully funded at this point, the redesign of Broadway?
Broadway in Manhattan.
Manhattan. Sorry, my borough.
My understanding is that the certain segments of it are funded and moving ahead as capital projects.
Right.
You mean when you say the full quarter, you mean?
You mean the 34th down to Union Square, the redesign?
Yes, that's fully funded.
That's fully funded. And does that include, I know you're going to do 2 new kiosks in there, and those are going to have public water, publicly available water fountains too?
Yeah, that is the plan.
Yeah, and we talked about having a publicly available bathroom in that. Is that in the new bathroom plan? Do you anticipate having a publicly available restroom available?
I'm not sure. I'd have to check and get back.
Yeah, it's something, obviously the mayor's talked a lot about, especially with the Madison Park right there, or 23rd, Flatiron area. We'd really like to see a publicly available bathroom in that location. I hope that DOT can commit to doing that.
Yeah, we understand this administration has been very committed to increasing access to public bathrooms, and so we'll just have to check on that specific question.
And we're in active scoping, so this is the perfect time to have that conversation to make sure that the infrastructure is built for public bathrooms.
Yeah, I flagged it for your team. I want to make sure, since the capital's there, I want to make sure the capital's available to put that infrastructure in place, including the bathrooms and the water fountains and the bottle fillers and all the public amenities that we would need in that part of the city.
And I'll mention on that topic, because I know it is front of mind for many of us, on the public toilets. I believe the new program that the mayor announced, that EDC should be announcing a selected vendor very soon, so that program's going to be getting off the ground.
Great, and that selective vendor will determine where in the city, what boroughs, what neighborhoods will have?
No, we'll be working DOT in some coordination with parks to figure that out.
Okay, thank you. With public input, right?
Well, yeah, I think based on where we're hearing these kinds of, these types of needs.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Deputy Speaker?
Thank you. Just really quickly, the streamlined procedures to expedite equitable development speed. Will DOT update travel demand responses for newly upzoned neighborhoods like Jamaica or LIC?
Sorry, Councilmember, can you just clarify travel demand responses?
Yeah, so the speed effort, as I understand it, is to really look at communities that are being upzoned, travel demand, et cetera. And so what I want to know is, will you update any information for newly upzoned neighborhoods? Because this is a new thing going forward for this upcoming fiscal year, but there are neighborhoods that were recently rezoned. So just want to understand if this speed effort would apply to them.
So the speed effort specifically is about new rezonings and new developments.
I know.
But we're also still committed to what we've agreed to of doing a very comprehensive traffic study of Jamaica to make sure that we understand exactly how traffic patterns have changed.
I just want to make sure, because we just rezoned and then this effort is new. So just want to make sure. That was the question. Like, are you going to also retroactively look at newly rezoned areas? Because we just rezoned it last year.
So yes, we are studying that area. It's not part of the new funding, but it's part of the work that we do in our normal course of business.
Okay, back to the racial equity plan. So the desired outcome of one of DOT's midterm goals was to achieve citywide equity in transportation infrastructure by building and implementing a comprehensive plan to serve 100% of underserved communities by 2030. This is a laudable goal, but it does seem very vague and unrealistic. And I just think a lot about my community in Southeast Queens, where we have a lot of sidewalks and curbs that contribute to a wide range of things like illegal dumping, flooding, et cetera. So how can DOT achieve this transportation equity goal in underserved neighborhoods by 2030 if, according to another one of its long-term goals, DOT does not expect to build meaningful relationships with those underserved communities until 2036? Essentially, none of the indicators for this outcome relate to any new infrastructure investments that would be needed to achieve a citywide equity and transportation goal for infrastructure. So we just want to understand, like, why there's a lack of indicators that match this critical aspect of the outcome.
Thank you, Council Member. I mean, I do want to underscore that transportation equity is central to what we're doing. I think the agencies make great strides, but it's going to be even more of a priority in this administration. We've brought on some new senior leadership, and we've kind of reorganized some of our offices to really create one group that can think holistically around long-term planning, how we embed equity in everything we're doing. We take it really seriously. You know, one thing we've done is, as part of the New York City Streets Plan, it established for the first time a citywide metric for how we measure transportation equity and how we identify underserved neighborhoods and invest in them. And it's really translating into all of our programs, where we're prioritizing our investments in those top tier equity priority neighborhoods. So, you know, I want to underscore that. I'm not sure, you know, I might have to get back to you on specifically the metrics in the racial equity plan, and we're happy to do that.
Yes, I would love for you all to get back to me, because we're doing a budget hearing now, and if in your goals, you set a goal for 100% of underserved communities by 2030 to have equity in transportation infrastructure, to me, all of those things carry a price. And so we want to make sure that as we continue towards adoption, that your agency's budget reflects the resources that can get you to your goal. And I think based off of what we've received, it doesn't, and that there are indicators that don't really match what you've put forward. So I hope that as you go towards finalizing your racial equity plan, that you make the necessary adjustments to actually achieve your goal versus just writing some things on a piece of paper because it may sound good. Thank you.
Understood. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to ask a question on behalf of Councilmember Brooks Powers, but this is actually an issue I know that is very important to myself as well as the Deputy Speaker and a bunch of other council members on the tractor trailer overnight parking. Because on September 28th, 2023, the council passed a bill that requires the city to create off-street parking for tractor trailers, because this has been a huge issue for us. And it requires DOT, DCAS, DCP to coordinate on creating that off-street parking by December 31st, 2025, which has already passed. So just in the interest of time, where have you identified those commercial parking, off-street commercial parking lots? And also, can you provide an update on the timeline as well as how much it's going to cost to build municipal lots? So where, how long, and the cost?
So yes, thank you for the question. We've been very aware of the issues with overnight truck parking and the new federal rules that have really put pressure on that. As you mentioned, we have been working with a lot of our sister agencies around the requirements of that law. So for example, DOT looked at all of the land that we own, which includes public parking lots now, as well as other pieces of land that we own. And we determined that we, DOT, don't have space that's appropriate for use in that context, but we are working with our other sister agencies, as EDC and others lead that effort. So we at the same time, we recognize that this is a big problem, and that's why we've been setting up on-street metered overnight truck parking in industrial districts where it belongs. That's why the council passed another bill really encouraging us to focus on those areas last year. And so we have been studying IBZs and other appropriate areas around the city for where we can provide more of that overnight truck parking so that it's not showing up in places where it's not appropriate. Okay. So while that particular study is beyond DOT, we are still as an agency very invested in doing a lot of work to provide that overnight truck parking in appropriate places.
How about DCAS, DCP, other agencies, private parking lots? I know that have been interested in renting out their spaces. How have those conversations been going? Because we're past the deadline, so I just wanted to get a sense of when.
Yeah, I think as long as the facilities work functionally, like obviously the trucks need a lot of space to be able to maneuver, and so that's a big part of the conversation. That's one of the limiting factors. But as Deputy Commissioner Beaton said, that those are active conversations. We're committed to trying to support this goal. I know I also bring it up every time I meet with like the Trucking Association of New York or others, and just really underscore, because we know this is a big issue for communities.
Yeah, if you can follow up with the timeline, that'd be great. And then also my last question is just around if you coordinate with NYPD regarding the illegal truck parking enforcement.
Yes, we work with them very closely, and we've worked with them to do blitzes in particular in areas where we get these complaints, and we try to work with them to go back over a period of time so that it's not just they got a ticket once and then it goes away, but we really try to focus it for a while. And then we work with the Trucking Association and others to provide information on where it is legal, because we do understand that there is a need, and we want to make sure that we're doing both the enforcement and the providing alternatives.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you. Last set of questions. Oh, I think I see my former staffer in the audience. Milo, how you doing? Nice to see you. I'm going to turn it to just a few questions. Resurfacing Fifth Avenue. The executive plan includes additional city funds of $453,000 in fiscal 2026 only to resurface Fifth Avenue. What will this funding be used for? Please be specific.
So ahead of the capital project that's happening on Fifth Avenue, we wanted to make sure that the service has a good riding service ahead of FIFA and other events. So that is why there was specific funding added for expense resurfacing of Fifth Avenue.
If it's just resurfacing, why isn't this capitally eligible?
So resurfacing by itself is capitally eligible, Chair, but because a capital project is coming up, we didn't want to mess with the capital eligibility of the larger Fifth Avenue project.
If we paved it with capital funds, it would basically preclude us from coming back to do the capital streetscape project for a certain amount of time, and we didn't want to preclude it.
Okay. Regarding public realm, 6.4 million in city funding was baseline starting in fiscal 27 for public realm programs. Will this funding just be used to support open streets at its current level, or will it be used to expand the program?
Yes, so first, we're very grateful that the funding was baseline, so we're not going year to year anymore and not
Certainly.
knowing what's coming up. So I think that's a really important investment to us to be able to plan. And as the commissioner said earlier, we do see the program growing. It's bigger at this point this year than it was last year, and it's not constrained by the money, right? We've always been able to do whatever has been needed, even if we have to move some money around internally. So we're committed to growing the program, and not just from a money perspective, but providing programming where it's needed. We've been working a lot on process to make sure that partners get paid much faster. I think the money and the long-term planning enable us to be able to do much more in terms of working closely with those partners.
So fair to say it is expanding.
Yeah, we don't turn anyone away because of money.
What other plaza programs will receive funding, if any?
So we are committed to expanding our plaza program, and we have an applicant-based process for that every year. And as part of that, we have our plaza equity funds, or our public space equity funds, because it goes beyond plazas now. And so we want to make sure that whoever has an idea for a plaza, we can work with them, whether to test it short-term as an open street, whether to eventually build it out capitally, to provide ongoing maintenance support. This is something we're very committed to as an agency.
And my last question is on streetlights. In fiscal 2025, it took DOT an average of 5.3 calendar days to repair streetlights, which is a 20.5% increase from 4.4 days in fiscal 24 and 76% slower than the 3 days in fiscal 21. It took Con Ed 22 calendar days on average to repair streetlights, which is 17.6% slower than the 18.7 days in fiscal 2024 and 45.7% slower than the 50.1 days in fiscal 21. The MMR indicates that DOT delays were due to weather-related outages and coordination issues with utilities during underground infrastructure work. No explanation of the Con Ed performance decline was included. The executive plan has an additional $1.5 million in fiscal 26 only for the streetlight maintenance. What will this money go towards? Is this money going towards already existing contracts for streetlight maintenance?
Chair, yes, it is.
So this funding is going toward already existing contracts with the vendors, what it sounds like. I'm a little concerned about that. With this money, will this money be directly used to increase coordination times with Con Ed?
So we meet with Con Ed very often. In fact, I met with them this week on various issues. We're constantly talking with them, but what is happening with our street lighting system is that overall it's pretty aged. And whenever we have a Con Ed issue, oftentimes it has something to do with the underground conduit needing to be replaced, and that is not just changing a bulb, it's more than a quick repair. So you're raising a valid issue. It is something that we are working on both internally with our contractors and with Con Ed.
I mean, between now and adoption, is there some way to add resources to focus in on increasing the coordination? Because it's something that we hear, time on end. This is a basic and essential function of the department. If this funding is not being used to coordinate with Con Ed or to speed up streetlight maintenance, I then have to ask, what is the DOT doing differently, because the current contracts and systems of operation in place doesn't seem to be working well.
Right, so the coordination is not something that we need funding for. Again, it kind of comes back to the physical plant, the infrastructure itself, and we're also looking at advancing some capital projects for larger areas in each borough where we know that the street lighting infrastructure is old and needs to be replaced in order to be reliable. So that's kind of the area that we're looking toward in the future.
And my last question, is there additional monies in the budget for updated streetlight infrastructure?
Yes, there is. We received $331 million in order to replace every LED in the city, and then also to provide sensors in every streetlight that will give us real-time information on the functioning of that streetlight.
Thank you very much, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Okay, I think we are actually done for this portion with the Department of Transportation. So thank you so much, Commissioner. Just want to give a special shout out. You have an amazing First Deputy Commissioner, Margaret, who is very helpful to a lot of us and has been. So thank you so much. Just wanted to give you a shout out. But not that I don't like the rest of you guys, but you know what I mean. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, council members.
Okay, and we're going to roll right into DCWP, which is next. So we're just going to take a couple of minutes to transition.
Keep it on, please. Shh, quiet, please. We're about to start. We're about to resume. Please have a seat. At this time, please have a seat, please. Thank you very much for your kind cooperation.
Can I start? Yeah. Oh, we're good. Okay. Hello. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the second FY27 executive budget hearing for the day, focusing on Department of Consumer Worker Protection. Councilmember Lee, I'm joined by our speaker, Speaker Menon, as well as our council member, Harvey Epstein, Chair of the Committee on Consumer and Worker Protection. And I would like to recognize we've been joined by Deputy Speaker Williams, Councilmember Krishnan, Banks, Wong, and Purina Sanchez, and Councilmember Schulman. So welcome to our Commissioner, Sam Levine, and your team. Thank you all for joining us today to answer our questions. On May 12th, 2026, the administration released the Executive Financial Plan for FY26 to FY30 with a proposed FY27 budget of $124.7 billion. The Department of Consumer and Worker Protection's proposed FY27 budget of $78.4 million represents less than 1% of the administration's proposed FY27 budget in the executive plan. And this is an increase of 3.7 million or 5% from the 74.7 million originally budgeted in the FY27 preliminary plan. This increase results from several actions, mostly from the significant and sustained increase of 77 positions at DCWP in FY27, increasing to 181 positions in 2029. As of April 26, DCWP's budget headcount was 85 more than their fiscal 26 budgeted headcount. Further, the mayor announced plans to double the budget of DCWP in order to strengthen worker protections and enforcement. In addition, DCWP has 19.3% vacancy rate that makes it difficult to meet its operational demands. And we were pleased to see that these additional funds were partially included in the plan. My questions will largely focus on the mayor's campaign promise, where he pledged to double the agency's budget, savings from OFE's re-estimation of the financial literacy expansion, and the savings that we are seeing from discontinuing the cloud migration program. And now, at this time, I will turn it over to Speaker Menon for her remarks.
Thank you so much, Chair Lee, and I really want to thank our Finance Chair for her great work in holding these hearings, and I want to thank our Consumer and Worker Protection Chair, Councilmember Harvey Epstein, for his terrific work on chairing this committee. And I want to thank you, Commissioner, and your team for being here, and to all the advocates that have taken time to participate in this budget process. So this hearing in particular is very meaningful to me, as I had the honor of serving as commissioner of this agency and as chair of this committee. And I've garnered a very deep appreciation over the very many years for the dedicated public servants who carry out this work each and every day. But those experiences also reinforce the importance of rigorous oversight and responsible fiscal management. Our responsibility today is to ensure that the fiscal year 2027 budget adequately equips the agency to meet its mission while delivering transparency, efficiency, and measurable outcomes for New Yorkers. The mayor pledged to double DCWP's budget during his campaign, recognizing that the agency needs greater funding to be successful. However, in the executive budget, the mayor pledged an additional $3.7 million to DCWP, bringing the agency's total 2027 funding to $78.4 million under his proposal. We in the council have consistently warned that insufficient funding could hamper DCWP's ability to investigate complaints and enforce local laws. To ensure that the agency has the staffing and operational capacity needed to carry out responsibilities assigned through local laws, the council is asking for an additional $32 million for DCWP. I understand certainly that behind every single line in the budget, there is a real impact on our communities. As we review it, the council will closely examine whether the proposed investments are sufficient to meet current and future needs, whether resources are being allocated equitably, and whether the agency has the staffing, infrastructure, and operational support necessary to succeed. In particular, I'm concerned about whether the department has sufficient staffing for its wide range of oversight and enforcement responsibilities, particularly on newer items that stem from council-initiated laws covering for-hire vehicle driver deactivation, security guard minimum wages, protected time off, delivery worker laws, and other items. I just want to say the council has passed so many important bills in this regard, and so we really want to make sure that the agency then has the proper resources to enforce them, because we've done all this work to pass these laws, but if we don't have the resources to enforce them, we're not really getting the results that we need to do. So we'll also be looking carefully at how the administration plans to address ongoing challenges, improve service delivery, and ensure that taxpayer dollars are being spent effectively and responsibly. New Yorkers deserve a government that is responsive, accountable, and capable of meeting the moment. Today's hearing is an important opportunity to assess where progress is being made, where gaps remain, and where additional actions may be necessary in the future. I look forward to a productive discussion and working collaboratively to ensure that this agency has all the tools and support needed to serve the people of the city. And I'm now going to turn it over to Chair Epstein for his remarks.
I want to thank you, Chair Lee, and the Speaker Menon for your leadership on these issues. I know, especially Speaker Menon, your familiarity with these issues, both as the Commissioner and the Chair of this committee, is really invaluable. I want to thank the Commissioner of DCWP for joining us today to talk about the Consumer Worker Protection budget for this upcoming fiscal year. You know, as we have heard already, and the questions we're going to be talking about is around the additional positions that you're hiring, the needs that the agency will have to ensure that it's fully funded to make sure that the workers and the consumers in New York get the support that they need. We really want to hear about the increased numbers enacted workers' consumer protection laws that the Speaker mentioned, and if the proposed budget will ensure that they have enough staffing in place to make sure we follow those needs. You know, my personal history as well as the Speaker, we're really uniquely able to understand these concerns and see this history for New Yorkers. You know, I do want to thank you, Commissioner Levine, for being here, your Deputy Commissioner, Elizabeth Wogan, Chief of Staff Carlos Ortiz, and General Counsel Mike Tiger for being here today. We really look forward to this active conversation where over the next few months to figure out, a few weeks, what our goals are together to ensure that the committee and the staff and the Speaker as the council make sure we have enough resources to ensure that you are getting done what you need for New Yorkers. I want to thank my team, the Legislative Division, Sarah Swain, Natalie Meltzer, my staff, Jackson Fisher Ward, Jenna Meehan, and our Finance Division, Glenn Maritoli, Daniel Krupp, and Chima who really put this together to make sure that we have a successful hearing. And I'll turn it back over to the Chair, Lee.
Great. I also want to recognize we have been joined by Councilmember Morano on Zoom, as well as Justin Sanchez. So before we get started, really quickly, just wanted to announce some logistics. So as you all know, if you've heard me speak at other hearings, because of the crunch in timeline for our executive budget hearings, we're going to do public testimony all on one day, Wednesday, June 10th, starting at 9:30 a.m. So please join us that day. We're going to try to make it as fun as we can. So executive budget hearings for the public testimony portion is Wednesday, June 10th, starting at 9:30 a.m. So please make sure to let folks know. And with that, I'll turn over to committee counsel to swear in the witnesses.
Good afternoon. Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth before this committee and to respond honestly to council member questions? Commissioner Levine?
I do.
Deputy Commissioner Wagner?
I do.
Chief of Staff Ortiz?
I do.
And General Counsel Tiger?
I do.
You may begin.
Well, thank you, Speaker Menon, Chair Lee, Chair Epstein, and members of the Committee on Consumer and Worker Protection. I'm Sam Levine, Commissioner of the Department of Consumer and Worker Protection. Today, I'm joined by our General Counsel, Michael Tiger, our Chief of Staff, Carlos Ortiz, and our Deputy Commissioner of the Office of Labor Policy and Standards, Elizabeth Wagoner. Thank you for the opportunity to be here today before this committee to testify on the work of our agency and our executive budget for fiscal year 2027. DCWP is the nation's leading municipal enforcement agency charged with delivering economic justice. We leverage our authority to bring New Yorkers real economic relief and protect them from predatory, deceptive, and unconscionable practices that violate their rights as consumers and as workers. This includes pioneering cutting-edge protections such as the city's Consumer Protection Law, Protected Time Off Law, Fair Workweek Law, and delivery worker laws, including the minimum pay rate for delivery workers. Through licensing more than 45,000 businesses in over 45 industries, DCWP ensures fair competition and a level playing field for responsible small businesses that are integral to New York City's vibrant communities. DCWP also provides essential services such as free tax preparation for individuals and families, as well as tax prep services for self-employed workers and small businesses, and one-on-one financial counseling to ensure New Yorkers keep more of what they earn and can plan for their futures. Though it's been just short of 6 months under my tenure, it's been a privilege to serve as the Commissioner of DCWP, an agency that champions millions of consumers, workers, and families across the city day after day. Today, I'll provide the committee with an overview of the executive budget for FY27, the work of our agency, and our path forward in continuing to build a fairer and more affordable city for all New Yorkers under Mayor Mamdani's administration. Starting with our budget. For FY27, DCWP's executive budget is approximately $78.5 million, with an active headcount of 409 and an authorized headcount of 561, the highest authorized headcount our agency has ever had. This is due in no small part to the advocacy of our partners, this council, and of course the immense support and recognition of our agency's work by our mayor. Mayor Mamdani's executive budget represents the single greatest investment in consumer and worker rights in DCWP history. All told, DCWP will be receiving a total of 181 new lines and $17.9 million in personnel services by FY29. The breakdown is as follows. In FY27, DCWP will receive 77 lines and $4.3 million in personnel services. In FY28, we will receive 76 lines and $7.3 million in personnel services. And in FY29, we will receive 28 lines and the remaining $6.3 million in personnel services. The new lines we will be receiving in FY27 will be strategically deployed to immediately begin implementation of major new laws and much-needed protections for New Yorkers. Going on to the important work we do. It has been just shy of 6 months since the start of my tenure, and I'm beyond proud of what this agency has already accomplished under the Mamdani administration. Our team has been at the forefront of the administration implementing cutting-edge new mandates, aggressively pursuing new protections, and securing victory after victory for the people of New York. These range from our expanded delivery worker laws, including a minimum pay rate for grocery delivery workers, an expanded protected time off law, and soon to come, deactivation protections for key workforces and more licenses for our city's street vendors. I also want to be sure to emphasize Chair Epstein's much-needed legislation to address the student loan debt crisis in our city. Under Local Law 84, we will be expanding our critical financial empowerment center network by providing student loan debt services, which will be essential for New Yorkers. In addition to the new laws and requirements, DCWP has also taken more proactive and innovative steps to strengthen protections for those who make our city run. Earlier this year, tasked with tackling deceptive and predatory practices under the mayor's executive orders, DCWP adopted the strongest prohibition on hotel junk fees in the United States. This rule protects both New Yorkers traveling outside the city and those visiting our city from unexpected and costly fees, with projected savings of up to $35 million a year for New Yorkers and up to $31 million a year for visitors. We also propose rules to ensure that consumers can easily cancel automatic renewals and subscriptions. Our click-to-cancel rule is estimated to save New Yorkers up to $162.5 million a year, according to an analysis by the Roosevelt Institute. Lastly, we finalized the SHIELD rule, a debt collection rule that provides New Yorkers with the nation's strongest protections against debt collector harassment. In addition to expanded protections under our rules, we also released a benchmarking report on a data-driven enforcement strategy for New York City's protected time off law, leading and guiding the nation in education and compliance on a cornerstone workplace right. This work to further New Yorkers' rights will only continue as we proactively leverage our authority to pursue an ambitious agenda delivering on the mayor's vision. While we have been working to implement and expand protections afforded to New Yorkers, we have also been fighting harder than ever before to vigorously enforce our laws, cracking down on predatory corporate practices to hold bad actors accountable. We started 2026 by launching a robust compliance blitz, sending notices to various industries, reminding them of their obligations under the law and the repercussions that arise from noncompliance. This past January, we exposed Uber and DoorDash for deceptive design tricks that made it harder for consumers to tip delivery workers, driving down worker pay by more than $500 million in New York City alone. We have shown major corporations that there are consequences for violating our laws, and we are actively seeking millions in penalties and restitution from numerous predatory businesses for exploiting and cheating New Yorkers. These efforts span across our work, delivering real results for consumers, workers, and small businesses alike. For example, we secured $5 million from 3 delivery apps for violations of the minimum pay rate, and more than $500,000 for freelancers ripped off by the production company Splashlight. In March, we announced a $1.5 million settlement with Dunkin' and Taco Bell franchisees for violations of the Fair Workweek law, securing economic justice and fairness for more than 760 workers. We took legal action against predatory businesses like Extra Space, Radiant Solar, and Instant Recovery Corporation, seeking over tens of millions of dollars in penalties for deceptive and illegal schemes to raise costs for New Yorkers. We also went after major employment agencies, including CMP, Golden Rose, and Elaine's, and won almost $1 million in restitution for individuals who faced exploitation and a violation of their rights by these businesses. In April, we announced a settlement of more than $875,000 with Hungry Panda for violating New York City's fee cap law and charging small immigrant-owned restaurants thousands of dollars in illegal junk fees, the first action our agency has ever brought under this authority. And most recently, the mayor announced our action against Honda of the Bronx, a used car dealer engaging in widespread deceptive practices. All of this work is a clear reminder that under this administration, there is zero tolerance for companies that violate the law, and that we will fight to bring justice to the New Yorkers that faced abuses. The numbers speak for themselves. Within the mayor's first 100 days, we had already secured nearly $10 million for New Yorkers, and that number is only growing as we continue delivering real economic justice to consumers, workers, and small businesses across our city. This is just the beginning of a transformative era, and we look forward to continuing our relentless fight to bring accountability, affordability, and economic justice to the people of New York. I thank you for the opportunity to testify today and DCWP's commitment to championing consumers, workers, and families in this new era of economic justice for all New Yorkers. I would again like to express my gratitude to Mayor Mamdani, to Chair Epstein, to the Speaker, to Chair Lee, to members of this committee, and to all of our partners in this room for their steadfast advocacy on our agency's behalf. It really means the world. We are eager to continue our success delivering millions in real economic relief to countless New Yorkers and advancing Mayor Mamdani's agenda for a fairer, more affordable New York City. I look forward to answering your questions.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. So we appreciate the testimony today. I want to get a little bit more into the head count because I know you said this is the biggest investment that's been made into DCWP. I think our finance team has some concerns about that assertion because it's our understanding that last year, in terms of where the budget was, both with head count and overall amount, that it actually was higher last year, so we sort of want to get into those numbers. I'm sure the chair will get into that as well. Do you have any comments on that?
Sure, and I'm happy to explain that, Madam Speaker. Last year's budget was, you might say, inflated by the inclusion of the summer contract for city residents. That was budgeted at $12 million for FY26. Under the current plan, we are eliminating the program for city residents effective in FY27. So that's going to reduce $12 million and then $14 million in FY27, $16 million in FY28, and we're plowing that money into our enforcement work. So if you look at our actual budget for enforcement, it's growing significantly.
Okay, I guess what we want to get clarity on is you mentioned in your opening statement that the highest authorized headcount of 561, but your active headcount is 409, which is lower than 417 this past July. So we want to understand that.
Oh, well, thank you, Madam Speaker. We do have vacancies. We have a vacancy rate of 16% right now. So we have a lot of hiring to do in FY27. We have vacancies to fill. We have 77 new lines to hire. And I can tell you, if you go onto our website right now, we have jobs posted. We're already actively engaging in hiring.
And I would note too, Speaker, that our authorized head count for fiscal year 26 was 483. But obviously with the mayor's investment for this fiscal year and moving into fiscal year 29, we're looking at I think overall 40% increase in the headcount of the agency.
And how quickly do you think you're going to be hiring?
We think we're going to be on pace to hire. I don't have month by month, Speaker, but we are going to be on pace to both close our current vacancies and hire the 77 through FY27. We're already moving.
So the council, as you know, is calling on the administration to allocate an additional $32 million for DCWP's budget to meet the need of the numerous pieces of critical legislation on consumer and worker protection that the council has passed in recent years. Do you feel that this additional funding would be sufficient to appropriately carry out the agency's mission?
Well, I haven't had a chance to look at the details of the council's proposal. I learned about it today. I greatly appreciate the vote of confidence that you have placed in the agency. I know you have particular affection for DCWP, as do I, and the vote of confidence by the committee. With respect to the executive budget, which I have looked at, we feel confident that with respect to the laws that the council passed, the new mandates, as you referenced, Madam Speaker, for our agency, that the 181 headcount that the executive budget authorized will be sufficient to meet our needs.
Mm-hmm. Okay. DCWP issue, well, let me just, before I move on from that, so you're saying that you do not need any additional funding beyond what is in the executive budget?
We always welcome more resources generally, and I know that the council is considering new laws, including with new responsibilities for DCWP, and I expect we'll have follow-up conversations about new needs there. But with respect to the bills the council's passed and that are already being implemented, we worked really closely with OMB and City Hall, and we feel we have what we need.
Okay. Earned safe and sick leave time. So I want to talk a little bit about that. So DCWP issued compliance warnings to roughly 56,000 New York City employers following the implementation of the earned safe and sick time amendments. What percentage of those employers have achieved compliance, and what enforcement actions have been taken against those that have not?
Well, I appreciate the question. We take a lot of pride in that warning blitz, and I'm going to turn things over to my colleague to share a little more. But the goal of that was not to open investigations of all of those thousands of businesses. It was twofold. One, we wanted to make sure businesses understood their obligation. I don't believe in gotcha enforcement. I believe in making sure businesses understand their obligations, workers understand their rights. That was the goal there. But also we wanted to make sure businesses knew that we were watching, that given the high volume of complaints over the years we've gotten about PTO, I wanted businesses to know that we took violations really seriously. That's why we followed up with warnings. That's why we followed up with enforcement. With respect to the number of incompliance, I don't think we've investigated every one of those businesses, but I'll turn things over to my Deputy Commissioner to share more.
No, that's echoing everything the commissioner said. And to generate that list, we're looking at all of the restaurants in the city, which obviously is information that DOHMH maintains, and is historically can be a high violation industry. And all of our past targets going back years and years and years, every company we've ever investigated in the past also got a letter like that. And as we hear from workers, as the year goes on, we'll be able to look and see, did this company get a notice of the new laws? There's absolutely no excuse not to be in compliance with the law.
And what type of outreach is the agency doing, particularly for small businesses that might not be aware of the new requirements? How do we make sure that they are aware? What kind of outreach is happening in that regard?
This is a key priority for me. I spoke to the National Supermarket Association yesterday about this. We've held online seminars with small businesses. We were also educating workers, but business education is key. We have a Deputy Commissioner for External Affairs here who can add more on these efforts.
Thank you. Yes, Madam Speaker, I think education is a core component of I think how DCP wants to approach our work. As the Commissioner mentioned, we don't play gotcha with our laws. We want to make sure we're engaging with folks in an honest discussion. Besides these webinars and what we call DCP 101 events with business associations and their representatives, we also engage in direct outreach to businesses, both through our community affairs team, but also our enforcement team that offers what we call VIP inspections, where they offer any new business a free educational inspection to help them understand what their obligations are. We reach thousands of businesses through these efforts across the year, the calendar year. It's something we're looking to build upon.
And how many staff do you have dedicated to enforcement around this topic?
I'm going to kick that to our Deputy Commissioner.
So we actually have our investigators, attorneys, and data scientists in the Office of Labor Policy and Standards working on all of our laws. So our, not including the new lines we've just received, we have 54 people in OLPS who work on all of our laws. The biggest area of work for us is our threefold paid safe and sick leave, which we're now calling the protected time off law, the Fair Work Week law, and the delivery worker laws.
Mm-hmm. Moving to a new topic, the FAIR Act and housing affordability. So since the FAIR Act took effect on June 11, 2025, DCWP has received over 1,400 complaints related to illegal broker fees, but it appears only 50 summons to real estate brokers, landlords, or property managers have been filed, which equates to roughly 3.5% of total complaints. Can you explain why that is the case?
Yeah, I'm happy to, Madam Speaker. I'll say briefly that we're since the FAIR Act was enacted, we were now up to 73 summons, 27,000 in penalties awarded by oath, 15,000 awarded in restitution. But there's still a gap, as you recognize. The basis for that is twofold, and our General Counsel can add more to this. One, sometimes often we will get complaints from folks who were not actually charged a broker fee, but maybe their friend told them they were charged a broker fee, or they were attempted to charge a broker fee. We will follow up. We will not always be able to follow up and actually reach that broker. So part of it is just general awareness of the FAIR Act, and we're very proud of our outreach campaign on that. Part of that also is just the oath process. A lot of these cases are moving through oath, and you are seeing the number of recoveries for consumers steadily rising. Mike, do you want to add to that?
No, that's absolutely right. When this law came on board, we took it very seriously and prioritized it. And I think just to note, this new investment that the Commissioner was talking about by the Mamdani administration is definitely something we are going to, the FAIR Act and other rental issues, the issues that arose during the mayor's rental ripoff hearings are definitely a topic that we are going to use when we get these new lines on board to redouble our efforts, especially for the FAIR Act.
Okay. I want to switch gears to financial counseling, and then I'm going to pass it over to Chair Lee. So the percentage of DCWP financial counseling clients achieving a financial goal within their first year dropped from 21.1% in fiscal year 25 to 17.3% in fiscal year 26, which is the lowest rate in at least 3 years, and well below the agency's directional target to improve this figure. The number of clients served also fell by 6%. Given the administration's stated affordability agenda, what does the fiscal 2027 executive budget include specifically for this program, and what is driving the deteriorating outcome rates?
Yeah, well, let me start by saying financial empowerment centers serve thousands of New Yorkers every year. With respect to the outcomes on the MMR, the time frame was shortened to a year. Many of our clients are looking for longer-term financial help where we just don't have data. So not all of the benefits that our clients in the financial empowerment centers realize are come through in that data because it's a longer-term estimate. As a general matter, though, Speaker, I completely agree. We want to get more New Yorkers using our financial empowerment centers. We have capacity. We have wonderful partners all over New York City. We want people getting in the door. Many of our staff have used these counselors, gotten outstanding results. We want more New Yorkers to benefit. In terms of the budget, I don't know if you have that handy for financial empowerment. We are targeting an increase. It's going to be FY26. It's $4.8 million.
I would also, I appreciate the Commissioner's point about our staff using our services as well. We're very proud of the financial empowerment centers. We've even had 2 commissioners that have had their student loan debt forgiven through our financial empowerment centers. And since inception, we've increased our savings for New Yorkers by 15.6 million, and we help reduce debt by 135 million. So it's a fundamental program for the agency.
Okay, all right. Thank you. I'm going to turn it over back to Chair Lee.
Actually, perfect segue. So the budget reflects savings of $2 million in fiscal 26 from a re-estimation of OFE's financial literacy expansion. So can you clarify which planned programs or expansions are being delayed and what the revised realistic timeline looks like?
Yeah, absolutely. This was purely a function, Madam Chair, of background checks for vendors taking longer than we thought they would.
Got it. So it's
we
being
have the
pushed.
exact same goal as we did a year ago,
Okay.
serving every school district by the end of FY29. We've had to delay the expansion by a little bit due to essentially a ministerial matter.
Okay. And what's the estimated timeline, revised timeline, I should say?
It's actually the same for reaching the goal of every school district. It's by the
Okay.
end of FY29.
So the end goal is the same, but it's just the middle part that's
Precisely.
pushing out. Okay. And the budget reflects savings of $500,000 in FY27 from discontinuing the agency's cloud migration project. So just wanted to know what the rationale was for ending it, and does the agency have a plan to modernize its technology infrastructure going forward?
Absolutely, and this actually reflects that attempt to modernize. One of the things we heard loud and clear from OMB, and our outstanding admin division, or excuse me, DOTS division takes this really seriously, is we are insourcing more of our services, bringing expertise in-house. We canceled a very expensive contract with Civis, and we're replacing it with boots on the ground in the building, which we think is going to deliver better services for less money.
Okay. Perfect. And bringing it in-house, staffing-wise, what does that look like? And
I believe it's not even very many people. We're going to have 9 new folks for our DOTS division, and that's going to be transformational, we believe, in our ability to modernize our IT infrastructure.
okay, perfect. Great. And I'm going to stop there to allow for members to ask more questions, but I'm chairing. Yeah. Oh, yes. I'm sorry. So we've also been recognized by Councilmember Aldebal, Councilmember Wilson on Zoom, and Councilmember De La Rosa. And with that, I'll pass it off to Chair Epstein.
Thank you, Commissioner, and thank you all for being here and the time you put into these issues we care so much about. The preliminary hearing, we talked a lot around the wait time that people had when someone had an hours issue. It would take them 6 months before they'd even hear from someone. The investigations would take potentially a year based on the funding that were being proposed in the executive budget. What would the wait time look like for a regular New Yorker who works at McDonald's and feels like they're not getting their schedules appropriately, and there's concerns around that?
So the wait time for an ordinary New Yorker is going to depend, of course, on how much information we get and whether we detect a work-wide violation. I think the deeper problem that you're absolutely right to highlight is what you also said, which is 6-month backlog of enforcement. What that means is that folks who had their wages stolen in some cases, the employers who stole them are sitting on that money while workers are being left holding the bag. Our goal, and more than our goal, we believe we are now equipped, thanks to the mayor's investment, is to take that 6-month backlog and reduce it to 0. And I want to turn things over to a deputy commissioner to say more about that.
No, that's right. In the metrics that that led to the development of the ultimate number, that is explicitly what we're looking at. What would it take to bring it down to 0? And we believe we'll be able to achieve it.
And so how many investigators are you planning to hire?
I mean, that's going to be happening over a period of years, but we have 10 vacancies posted today. And so-
Everyone hear that?
Yep. Anyone watching this hearing, please go online, find the job, and apply. The civil service exam is also open right now and closes on June 23rd. So we're looking to get it done very quickly to bring new people on.
Yeah, if you could help circulate that information, I'm happy to put it in an e-blast, let people know. So if you send stuff over to my team, we're happy to spread the word.
It would be our pleasure.
Thank you, Chair. We blasted our job postings out yesterday to all elected offices, so we can make sure we re-up that again.
Thank you.
There are also consumer protection investigator positions with the same civil service deadline for all those watching at home.
Okay, so 10 is going to get you to 0 wait time?
10 will not, but obviously there's resources coming each year. And so this is really pacing us at a rate that will allow us to hire up and absorb new people. Of course, if we have the ability to move faster and bring on more, and we're seeing that there would be a benefit to the backlog, we'll be working with our partners at OMB to show them those metrics and move forward on a.
I'm sorry.
I just wanted to know, so we're not getting to 0 in the fall. So people are waiting 6 months to even speak to someone, is what we were told, even if they submitted their documents. When are we going to get to a place, what day would someone be able to get to a short wait time? Are we talking about 2029? Are we talking about 2030?
It is very hard to say, but I would love to try to achieve that. I would love to try to achieve that within a year, but we're going to have to see how it goes.
If I may make 2 points, Chair. One, just to be clear, our worker protection, OLPS is getting 10 investigators this year, but that's out of a total of 29 new folks, which is, I don't know what percentage that is for the division, but it's a massive increase.
It's almost a doubling of our investigations capacity.
So just to be clear, you have 10 investigators now, you're going to get 10, you'll double the number of investigators?
10 investigators, but there are attorneys, there are some clerical, I don't know. Yeah.
Right, I believe we have 11 investigators now, so adding 10 more is almost doubling it.
And then you're going to get some lawyers too, I assume?
So supervising investigators, which also increases capacity on that team, lawyers as well, and so
how many supervisors, how many lawyers?
So we're starting off with a total staff of 54 before this addition, and then we'll have 29 afterwards.
29 additional.
Additional, in addition to that.
And so 10 investigators, a couple supervisors.
And then we've got, let me see if I can do this.
Okay.
We've got, let me see, 10 lawyers.
Couple
the
supervisors.
rest are going to be data scientists.
Data science. So they're doing data analysis for folks.
So we use our data analytics team on our class-wide cases under all of our laws to take employer data or app data and identify it precisely to count each violation that each worker in the class experienced.
And so how many active litigation cases do you have now then for your current legal team?
So most of our enforcement work is pre-litigation.
Sure.
And so we have dozens of large class cases that attorneys are handling and in various stages of the process, whether that's in the data analytics process or in the settlement negotiations process.
Could you give me a general number? How many cases are in court? How many cases are in negotiations? I'm sure you have that number somewhere.
We'd have to follow up with you to give you a precise number. I can say today that it's several dozen, but we can definitely get those breakdowns.
I would appreciate that. And then I am concerned about the backlog, and I know the commissioner and you are deeply committed to this work. You wouldn't be doing it otherwise. And to say that maybe in a year we might be in a better position is a little concerning to me because, this is a priority for all of us. And I'm wondering if you had more resources staffing up sooner, like instead of hiring 12, 10 investigators, you hired 15, obviously that backlog would reduce quicker. Is that a fair statement?
Oh, go ahead. One point I would make, and then I'll turn it over to the Deputy Commissioner, is, we do have it's a good problem to have, but we are such a lean agency that the same folks who are doing those investigations are interviewing candidates. And they're going to be spending a lot of the summer both full steam ahead on their cases and full steam ahead on interviewing candidates. And they're going to keep interviewing through the rest of the year. So, the reality is that, again, new lines, it's a wonderful problem to have, but it does, there are only so many people we can onboard, and we really designed the 181 OMB would not have authorized that headcount if we didn't show them in granular detail that we had the capacity to bring those folks on. So I'm not saying, we could have conversations about what additional capacity would mean in hiring, but I do just want to say that there are operational limits on how many folks we can bring on. If we could hire 1 million people tomorrow, that we would not actually be able to close the backlog tomorrow.
That's right. Just in terms of the resources to train people, this is the right number to be able to absorb new staff, to have them learn and follow our procedures for investigations, and to ultimately continue delivering the high level of service that we offer workers.
We've heard, you choose one industry, deactivation, right? So, we've heard from the deliveristas that every day 200-300 people are banging down their door about deactivation. So they don't have capacity to do it. So how do we support them to ensure that they can maybe be a frontline person to limit the number of cases that are coming to you? Do you have resources in the budget to help organizations like that who are really on the front lines trying to help?
We have resources in the budget to make sure that we have the staff to meet those needs.
Right.
We're also working very closely with outside partners to make sure that there's an orderly process, that people know their rights. Do you want to talk a little bit about deactivation implementation?
Sure, and just to first say, WJP and all of our community partners do extraordinary work. They are a critical part of the worker protection infrastructure, and definitely want to see them continue to be supported to do that work so that they can continue to refer us cases, so that we can continue to refer them cases on matters outside of our jurisdiction. It's really critical, and we will continue to work with organizations who are working with delivery workers to make sure they're able to get delivery workers to us so that we can pursue those deactivation matters for them.
So you have no money in the budget to to subcontract them to do this work. Is that what I hear you saying?
We do not manage those contracts. That's right. That runs through. Carlos should speak to this, but yeah.
Well, that's correct. The money that we were allocated was for personnel services and to increase the agency's capacity. Right. I recognize your point and in full agreement that over the past 10 years, the agency has had historic disinvestment. But that's why we're incredibly excited with what the mayor has done, obviously with the support of the council and our allies that you're bringing up in this conversation too, Chair, to bring us to a place where we can meet our mandates and hopefully grow even further as new mandates come.
Yeah, I care about the street vendors, and they may not come to DCWP right away. They may need an organization like the Street Vendor Project to ferret out what's an appropriate case to come to. They have the relationships. It would be great to see funding from the agency that says, we know we're going to have to enforce these laws, but we know these are really culturally competent organizations who are on the ground, who are going to be able to figure out what should come to us and what shouldn't. Shouldn't there be resources from your agency to go directly to them?
Well, I would say, Chair, that partnership exists and will only grow. And we plan to work closely with Street Vendor Project and our new executive director for street vendor services as well, to go directly to street vendors, to go to the places where they're vending, to ensure that they understand about what services and licenses are available by the agency. So that's what our current PS allocation is, and again, we look forward to having these conversations if we're going to need more resources eventually.
Yeah, I appreciate you need more resources, but Carlos, you wouldn't disagree that they need resources too, right?
Thank you, Chair. Sorry, I was distracted. No, I wouldn't disagree that I've had conversations directly with WJP and other organizations. I know that they have conversations directly with the council themselves over discretionary funding. So I understand that those aspirants too. I'm just can only speak to our budget and our resources and what we've been allocated.
And I would just add to that, Councilmember Chair. Right, we do not get money for those organizations. What I will say, though, is that I really believe that it is symbiotic in a way. We are working closely, for example, with Street Vendor Project to get the word out this summer about getting off the wait list and getting a license. That is going to provide a real value proposition for the Street Vendor Project to all the vendors out on the street. Similar with Worker Justice Project, NYCHA, they're going to work with their members to explain to them deactivation protections. We're going to work with NYCHA and WJP. I think the more that we partner closely with these organizations, the more that they're going to be able to offer value to their members. And I hope that creates a virtuous cycle. These organizations gain more visibility and reach, and that we can do the same.
Yeah, Commissioner, I couldn't agree more with that statement, and I just would say that I know we have a lot of colleagues who have questions, but I'd love to see if there's a way we can get them direct funding to do that, because I've heard directly from all of them, whether it's Worker Justice Project like you mentioned, or the Street Vendor Project we just talked about, who there are more members coming to them than they have the resources to handle. And while you'll be the agency empowered to protect their members, as well as all the consumers out there, there's not as many resources that they can turn to be able to do this work, and we'd love to see the administration play a vital role in getting those resources to them.
I hear you on that, and to be clear, and I think I speak for everyone here, we could not do our job. We could not do the worker protection we've done without partners like WJP and NYCHA. I totally agree on the vital role these organizations play.
And I'll turn back over to Chair Lee.
Great. Just also want to recognize we've been joined by Councilmember Ariola online and Tiffany Caban. Hello. So we are going to start with Deputy Speaker, followed by Councilmember Banks.
Thank you. Hello. Just a macro question around the racial equity plans. Yes. So how does DCWP define equitable enforcement, and what metrics does the agency use to determine whether enforcement practices are being applied fairly across communities?
Well, I would make 2 points because I think this is a critically important issue. The first is that we know that some of the worst economic abuses are targeted at New Yorkers of color, primarily at Black and Brown New Yorkers and immigrant New Yorkers. That is why I am fully committed not only to continuing to vigorously enforce our laws, but making sure that our enforcement actually reflects where abuses are happening throughout our city. There have been studies, not in New York, but nationwide, that consumers of color, for example, are less likely to report violations to government agencies. What does that mean? It means that government agencies are less likely to hold accountable those who prey on communities of color. That is not acceptable. My commitment at DCWP is to make sure we're serving everyone in New York City, especially those being harmed the most by these abuses. And that is why we take so much pride in our outreach efforts. We are aiming to do 2 events a day, more than 700 events every year. We go to every borough, every community. And what I say to every group is, if you don't feel comfortable filing a complaint with the government, you can go to Worker Justice Project, you can go to Make the Road, go to another group, file a complaint with us. It is critical that we not only kind of sit in our downtown office waiting for complaints, that we go out in the community and make sure that we're serving people who are most targeted by economic predation.
And so back to the racial equity plans though, like what goals has DCWP put forward that matches what you just said?
Well, a key goal, and this came up in the core report that came out very recently, is on youth financial empowerment. The fact of the matter is, we're at the beginning of summer. We know that a lot of young New Yorkers are going to have their first jobs, and they're instantly going to be targets for predatory fintechs, predatory actors who are going to try to separate them from their paychecks. One of the points that was made by CORE was that DCWP should really step up its financial empowerment work, especially its youth financial empowerment work, including in partnership with Kids Rise. I could not agree more with that. We're never going to have the resources to take down every bad actor, even with the council's generous proposal this morning. So that's why I think it's really important to empower people in school banking, which was another core recommendation. It's something we are implementing. Youth financial empowerment, we're going to reach every school district by the end of FY29. So I thought the core report was right on point in terms of our goals and how we're going to meet them over the years to come.
And just to go back to equitable enforcement, because you answered that question by primarily talking about workers, but businesses. So has DCWP conducted any geographical or demographical analysis of where violations, inspections, and enforcement actions are concentrated citywide? And so that's what I'm talking about.
I see. I apologize.
For me, because I think about budget equity, we're in a budget hearing, what I want to know, and I'm always interested in, is where is the city also generating revenue?
Yes.
Are you only generating revenue in certain communities over others? And so that is sort of the source of my first question, coupled with the other one about if you have any geographical or demographical analysis of where violations are occurring across New York City.
I don't have it at my fingertips. I do believe we have pretty good analyses of where we're seeing violations throughout the city. But I also want to be clear and repeat what I said earlier. I don't believe in gotcha enforcement, especially with small businesses. We've seen an exodus of small businesses last year under the final year of the Adams administration. We're really trying to reverse that. I was very proud that Mike's team, the general counsel team, returned more than $500,000 to immigrant-owned small businesses. First enforcement action in our history to do that, who were ripped off by Hungry Panda, a delivery app. So I'm happy to get you additional data on where our enforcement is.
Yes, I would love to, I asked DOT a similar question, like if you do have a map of where you're primarily finding certain businesses across New York City, that would be helpful. Thank you.
I'm happy to see what we can get you on that. I think we do. I think we do have that. We will follow up.
Okay, great. Councilmember Banks?
Thank you, Chairs. And Commissioner, to your team, when it comes to local law 168, which went into effect on May 27th, just recently, which requires tax preparers to provide consumers with itemized fee and disclosures before and after services are rendered. Want to know what steps has DCWP taken to educate preparers and consumers about these new requirements to ensure compliance with the law?
Yeah, we take this incredibly seriously. It's, we see so much predation in the tax prep space. It's one reason why we were so aggressive this year in promoting our free tax prep and in doing a warning blitz. I think the first in our history to every licensed tax prep provider in the city that we are looking out for violations. Mike, do you want to share more on our implementation?
No, I think this is a very important topic and something that we're always have our ear to the ground on. We had a case against Rocket Tax last year.
Right, okay.
And we're always looking for compliance in that, and for that settlement, and we're always looking for new targets. One of the great things, we have a consumer services unit that is our ear to the ground for all consumer complaints, and we look at the trends, and we look both in terms of who are potential targets, and this is in tax prep in all our categories, like who are individual businesses that we see are repeat violators of the laws and rules we enforce, and what are the new scams that we didn't even know about, but people on the street are telling us. So we always encourage people to go directly to our website and file complaints. That's really the grist for how we determine how we're going to direct our enforcement.
Thank
Councilmember,
you. Thank you for that response. Let me just get my questions out, and then you can chime in on the next one if you want. While tax season is technically over, many New Yorkers continue to file extensions, amendments on their returns, and they utilize the tax preparation services throughout the year. Has DCWP already begun consumer outreach regarding local law 168? And if so, what has the outreach looked like, and what lessons has the agency learned thus far?
Yeah, I'll ask Carlos to describe a little bit of some of the specific outreach, but if I may just brief point, public service announcement for everyone. Our New York City free tax prep, which serves over 100,000 New Yorkers every year, no fees, no fines, no nothing, except tax help, is available year round.
But there's a large percentage of folks who don't take advantage of that.
Absolutely,
and they use it on
Councilmember.
private. Yes.
And
Yes, and Councilman, I was going to mention that we are updating our educational materials for businesses as well, and we should be distributing those soon so they can understand their obligations of the law.
Okay. And then on the educational materials, we're hoping that they're obviously multilingual. Obviously, you talked about the public awareness campaigns, and what partnerships are you going to be forming to develop to ensure that both consumers and tax preparers understand their rights and the obligations of local law 168?
Well, traditionally, our outreach model is based on deep ties with local community-based organizations, being able to plug into their regular membership and convenings of community members. So I think we're going to activate those again.
Right.
Typically throughout the tax season, we hit hundreds of events to help educate consumers, and that even starts before the tax season. So I think we're going to plug into similar aspects and working with also business associations and their representatives. I think that's been a trusted model for us in our outreach.
Excellent. And tools are available to address violations, and has the agency identified any implementation challenges that may require additional staffing, resources, or legislative changes moving forward?
I think we have, thanks in part to the law and to the investment by the mayor, I actually think we have strong authority and capacity to take these on. One technique we've done in the past, which has been effective, is sweeps, where we do a broad because precisely for the reason you said, most New Yorkers are still using private preparers.
Correct.
Many of them are breaking the law. When we do a sweep, we're sending a message that we're looking across the marketplace. Do you want to add to that?
Right, and there are two ways we can conduct a sweep. We have a field enforcement division. People are out in the street every day, as we're speaking, going to business, making sure they're complying with the mostly consumer-facing laws and rules of the city. And so we have people, and around tax season, we have sweeps of those and for making sure that tax preparers are complying with the specific laws and rules that they need to comply with. Then we have lawyers, back in the office,
right,
who are looking at those complaints, like I mentioned before, council member, and saying, which businesses should we be taking a deeper look into?
Okay. Well, thank you for your responses, and looking forward to continue working with you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have Councilmember Pirina Sanchez, followed by Councilmember Krishnan.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning. First, I just want to start with expressing how exciting it is to see the agency's trajectory these last 6 months. I think any mayor or any executive envisions a commissioner like you when they win office with coming in with a track record of success, but also an ambitious vision for the agency and a readiness to roll up your sleeve with the team that is there. I just want to congratulate you on everything that you guys are all doing together for New Yorkers. I'm going to do the thing where I ask all my questions up front and then hope that there's time for a response.
Okay. We'll take notes.
Thank you. So to start, DCWP, I mean, I'm biased. You are my favorite. You're one of my favorite agencies. Don't tell HPD. You've just been such a fantastic partner on reforming the street vending system in New York City. Special shout out to Carlos Ortiz and everyone back there. We have really reframed this problem together in New York City, and I appreciate it. So my first question here is, while I appreciate, was very happy to see significant investments for the implementation of street vending reform, I remain concerned that the piece that DCWP has around processing 10,500 new general vendor licenses is still too low. I understand that there's only 6 new staff that are going to be added for fiscal year 27. So I just want to understand the plans for processing these new applications per local law 54 with this staffing. Question 2. The new licenses that are being made available in January will be the first change to the general vendor cap since 1979. So the questions are, when the new waitlist opens, how will DCWP prioritize the new general vendor licenses? Do you have a sense of the criteria the agency will be using? And how can we ensure that licenses are getting to the hands of the street vendors who've been waiting for decades? And the third one on street vending is outreach. The chair touched on this a bit regarding Street Vendor Project and our partners on the ground. But I suppose my question is whether there's any dedicated staff within the agency across the 189 new lines that you mentioned in your opening, specifically for outreach. And then, as you know, Commissioner, I am ecstatic about the click to cancel rule and that the momentum the agency has on this policy. You know, I speak for myself, and I know many New Yorkers who are just so freaking annoyed by companies that make it impossible to leave subscriptions, that harass you even after you're gone, but really trap New Yorkers into subscriptions that they don't need. So just a status update on where we are with the proposed rules, and is there any staffing associated with implementation of that new rule? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember.
2 seconds to
That
spare.
That was great. I'm going to run through each one, and we'll see how I do, okay? And Carlos can back me up. All right, licensing staffing. We are confident we have the capacity in our licensing division to hit the ground running this summer on getting the general vendor licenses out the door. We have a extremely efficient licensing division, and I'll just say, you know, average wait time of 4 minutes when you're in the office, 4 days for processing. Typically, about 90% of our licensees now apply online. We recognize many street vendors are going to prefer the in-person option, and that is why we asked for and received 6 new lines for FY27. We are confident we're going to be able to meet those needs and continue, you know, outstanding, I think the best in the city for licensing service to our smallest small businesses and our newest licensees. With respect to the wait list and how to prioritize, we're going to be releasing rules on that in the next couple of weeks. I could say as a general matter, Councilmember, we're going to start with about the 9,000 folks who are already on the wait list, which was closed in 2016. Once we process those applications, we'll move on to creating a new wait list, and we'll start processing those applications. So we're going to put out the rule soon, but my commitment is to make sure this process is predictable, people understand it, people know that even if they don't get a license in the first tranche, they know where they are in line. And that's really important to us. With respect to outreach, we really want to go big this summer, and Carlos will be able to add to this, I think, after I get through the questions. I know we're meeting with you in a couple days about this. We've been working with Street Vendor Project, with the Office of Street Vending, with Small Business Services. We know that this is a community not used to being helped by the city. Usually when they interact with city officials, it's police or other enforcement. We want to reach out to our street vendors with licenses and with information on how to obtain licenses. So we are dedicating staff to outreach on that, and Carlos can share more. Last, but definitely not least, we're incredibly excited about the click to cancel rule, as I share your enthusiasm. It is a proposal right now. We are the first city in America to propose a rule like this. We're very excited about it. We received a lot of comments. I don't know the exact number, but I think one of the most interesting comments is from the Roosevelt Institute, which estimated that this could save New Yorkers up to $160 million every year. That is the scale of tricks and traps we are facing. So we're extremely excited. The next step will be we're going to make a decision about whether to adopt the rule and make it final. Do you want to add a little bit to the outreach portion?
Yes, thank you, Commissioner. I think we're already developing plans for how to meet street vendors where they are, including by identifying high traffic areas where vendors are conducting their business activity. Our community affairs team is 6 members right now, but they burn a lot of shoe leather. I personally believe they're the best outreach team in the city, and our overall external affairs division often contributes as well to helping out in outreach initiatives. So I think we plan to be out there extensively over the course of the summer, also working with agency partners too to make sure that we have boots on the ground to accomplish our goals.
Thank you. There you go. Thank you, Chair. Chairs.
Okay, next we have Councilmember Krishnan, followed by Councilmember Wong.
Thank you, chairs, commissioner, deputy commissioner, and all the whole team. Thank you all so much for all your great work at DCWP and your leadership. Proud to see all that you're doing and to partner together. Deputy Commissioner, first Deputy Commissioner Carlos Ortiz, also a constituent in Jackson Heights too, so I appreciate you all paying close attention to the issues there, from street vendors to taxi cab drivers, everything else. I just have a quick question. So one is, you know, we've talked a bit about having the resources that you all need for the new legislation that we've passed. And so I just want to make sure, we've talked a lot about street vendor implementation, very glad to hear that. I know, Commissioner, we've spoken a bunch about taxi driver, the deactivation bill that we've passed and how important that is. So I just want to make sure you all feel that you have what you need for the number of cases that will come in, the look back period, and how that will be raised. You feel good with what you've got to you know, unveil that program?
I do, Councilmember. I really appreciate the question. I think it was probably apparent from the last hearing we had that my biggest concern actually going into the summer is how we're going to make sure we can meet the council's mandate on the outstanding bill you championed on for-hire vehicle deactivation, and then later in the year, at the end of the year, delivery worker deactivation. I do feel confident. Liz's team is working very hard to put an infrastructure in place. You know, we're going to see what the volume is. If it spikes much higher than we think, you know, we might have to revisit it. But at this point, based on our projections and staffing, we do have confidence we can meet those needs.
Great. And can you say a bit more about, is it going to be a new set of staff attorneys hired that would be focused on this in particular, or what would that staffing look like?
Let me turn that over to our person in charge of that.
Sure. Right now, we're very focused on rulemaking and being sure we can get a rule out that lays out some of the key details of how apps are required to handle their various obligations under this law. We are looking to staff this law the way we have successfully enforced many of our other laws, with investigators trained to do the initial intake work, who often are able to successfully resolve a case without attorney involvement, and then moving to attorneys when that's not possible. And you know, we believe that we're going to be able to start successfully handling those cases.
Great. Very glad to hear it. And Commissioner, I would just say too, any ways that we can partner together, you know, to get the word out to in districts where there's obviously high, you know, driver resident populations, you know, partner with us, my office, with NITWA. Very happy to find any ways to get the word out there.
We would love to do that. We're eager to get the word out. NITWA's been a great partner on this, and we'd love to work with you further.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for your leadership. And I know Carlos will follow up separately too on a couple quality of life issues too in the district that we wanted to address with you all too. So appreciate your partnership there too.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman.
Thanks.
Thank you. Councilmember Wong, followed by Councilmember Caban.
Okay, thank you, Chairs. In my district, there's a big problem of unlicensed tow trucks. And the problem is this: whenever there's an accident, the police is no longer required to show up at the scene. So we have these tow trucks that pop out of nowhere quite often with fake plates. And with a combination of coercion and threats, they were able to convince many of these drivers to let their cars be towed away with that. Then they don't know, the drivers don't know that they were fake, unlicensed, or with fake licenses. So this is only my 5th month at the job, and I'm hearing like over a dozen of these complaints. That their cars got towed away to some backyard shop, and they're being extorted on hundreds of thousands of dollars in storage fees and in repairs that they did not expect. So can you talk about what is being done, and how could your increase in headcount be able to step up the enforcement of checking their licenses? Thank you.
I'm very happy to do that, Councilmember. I'm going to frame it up and then turn things over to our general counsel to talk about including our recent enforcement action against one of these unlicensed companies. Let me just start by saying this is a huge problem across the city, a big problem in Queens. And one thing I really want to stress is, you know, we want to educate consumers about this. We want to educate New Yorkers to use licensed tow providers. But one thing I always say to people is, it is not on consumers to get this right. You've just been in a car accident, your car just broke down. You can't realistically expect people to go to dcwp.gov and see if .nyc.gov and see if they're licensed. So my big focus is on making sure these unlicensed tow companies are held accountable. The onus has to be on the tow companies to stop operating illegally on our streets, not on consumers to do their own due diligence when they're in some of the hardest moments of their lives.
Yeah, we take this very seriously. I mean, this is one of our core license categories that we get the most complaints about, not just about unlicensed activity. In fact, often it's from licensed actors who are overcharging. The council has very wisely set very strict limits on how much that tow companies can charge consumers, because it is such a precarious time for consumers, as the commissioner was alluding to and as you were referencing. So we look through those complaints, we choose which ones are getting the most complaints, and we focus our enforcement enforce in that direction. We filed a case against Instant Recovery, as the commissioner alluded to in his opening testimony. We always have several major open toe investigations ongoing. As far as unlicensed activity, that is a little trickier because it's out on the street in real time. That's something that we're partnering with the New York Police Department to figure out what the best next steps are. And I will say it's very important, if you are getting complaints from constituents, we're all ears, and there's a lot of different avenues that you can approach. Individuals, you know, despite what the commissioner said, can always go to DCWP, but you and your staff, we're always, Carlos, my team, we always want to hear what are the companies, because actual individual names with individual facts on the ground will always help sharpen our investigations.
Yeah, I'll share the list with you based on what the info I collected from my constituent complaints.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah.
Thank you, Councilmember Caban, followed by Councilmember Aldebal.
Thank you. Hello. You guys are my favorite agency. I don't need to couch it. My colleague over there. You can tell everybody. Also, thank you for.
I will tell everybody now.
I stand by it. Whatever. Also, glad to see that you had Amazon cough up close to 10 million in unpaid tickets. So I was happy to see that. Not going to be surprised that I want to ask about the Delivery Protection Act and sort of what that will cost moving forward. I know that I heard testimony that you feel good about your ability to enforce the many laws that we have already passed, and the ones that are coming into effect. But we want to do more. I think that we share the same ambition in being able to do more. We also know that there's just so much that we get in return in terms of raising revenue and putting money back in people's pockets. So, at the hearing on the Delivery Protection Act, you testified that you support the bill. Do you feel ready to, should it pass, enforce the licensing process and requirements that would come along with that? Do you have, with the numbers that you have, is that enough to enforce that bill, for example, or do you need more?
Well, thank you, Councilmember. We enthusiastically support the bill. I mean, just yesterday we were discussing before this hearing a Supreme Court case around a company that tried to force last mile delivery workers into arbitration. This was in another state, but it just shows the scale of the worker exploitation we see all over the United States. Your bill would put a stop to that in New York City. With respect to the lines we would need to enforce it, I believe we estimated we would need 19 lines. That was not included in the executive budget.
Okay.
Since it still hasn't passed.
Because we want to pass that soon, so it sounds like we use some more money.
Yes.
Okay, that sounds good. I also want to ask, because again, we share the goal in being as ambitious as possible. You guys are very good at what you do. I know that there may be limits on what you can say about potential legislation or legislation that hasn't even come before you yet, but what do you see as other potential areas of expanded regulation that you are currently concerned with? And to give you a not so surprising or shocking example, would you support expanding what is already a successful Fair Workweek law? And would you have the resources to do that, or do you need more?
Well, without commenting on any specific bills, of course, since we're talking generally, look, I think it is absolutely a problem, especially with the advent of algorithmic scheduling, where AI algorithms are deciding without any regard to the fact that workers have real lives and have families and have second jobs when people need to be on a shift. It is not fair to tell a parent the morning that they have to show up to work. We have nation-leading protections for retail, for fast food. And what I love about the protections in New York City is that it doesn't matter what the algorithm spits out. At the end of the day, if you're a fast food worker, you get 2 weeks notice. If you're a retail worker, you get 72 hours notice. I'd be very interested in having conversations with you, conversation with the rest of the admin about expanding those rights to other industries. There's no reason workers should have to toil at the mercy of an algorithm that takes no account for the full lives that they lead.
Oh, thank you. So you need more money. That's the takeaway. More money. All right, thank you.
Nice. Councilmember Aldebal.
Thank you, chairs, and I just want to echo what everyone else has said. You are certainly a lean, mean fighting machine. I do have a question about community outreach and outreach to businesses and to workers. And are you expanding staffing? And given all the all the worker protection laws and consumer laws, are you expanding enough to have capacity to be able to, educate consumers, workers, and businesses on what their obligations are and what their rights are?
I appreciate the question. I'll turn it over to our Deputy Commissioner for External Affairs.
Thank you, Commissioner. Traditionally, on average, every year we hit about 600 outreach events. I think this year we're aiming to hit about 760, two per day. We were doing that through our expansions that we had toward the end of last year and our community affairs team, but also we're receiving an allocation of 3 additional positions under this new needs that we received from the administration. We've also, I think, dramatically improved our ability to connect with New Yorkers over social media, digital media, press. I think we want to, following the direction of our commissioner, making sure that New York City workers, consumers, small businesses understand the role of this agency and how we can serve them. And we only want to make that grow over the years to come.
I have a question about security guard compensation. The new local law requires private sector security guard employers to meet government contract wage standards. What outreach is DCWP conducting to ensure that employers are aware of and prepared for these requirements before the effective date of the law?
Well, I appreciate the question, Council Member. We were very proud as an administration to support this bill, to support the council override. Not only is this going to be a critical milestone for security guards, but it's going to open the door to other potential efforts by the city to raise private sector minimum wages. With respect to outreach, the minimum wage portion of the bill, the law, takes effect, I believe, January 1st. Our plan is to partner closely with this, in particular 32BJ, to make sure that, and I know they're going to be very active in getting the word out. We want to work with them closely to get the word out. And we're going to be enforcing the law aggressively to make sure that even if workers might not know, we'll have partners out there who can make sure to bring violations to our attention so we can hold those employers accountable.
Do you have a sense of how many security guard employers will fall under the law?
I'm sorry, can you repeat
Do you
that?
do you have an idea how many security guard employers fall under the law?
I once knew that. I don't know if I have that number at hand.
I once knew it too. But
Yeah, I knew it in January.
it's been a while.
We don't have it, but we'll get back to you with that exact number.
I think
I'm
approximately.
sure 32BJ knows.
I think approximately the industry represented about 70,000 workers, the last number I checked, but I think this is something as we implement that will ensure that we have full understanding of the universe of the industry.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you. I'm going to pass it back to Chair Epstein.
Thank you all. So just so I'm clear, so Labor and Policy Standards getting 27 positions and General Counsel is getting 25 positions. Is that right?
I believe it's 29 for Labor and Policy.
And 20 for General Counsel.
Thank you.
20 for General Counsel?
20 for General. Do you want me to go through the division breakdown?
And yeah, what jobs are they? Are they lawyers, paralegals, investigators, researchers?
Sure. So it's 20 for GC, I think. Lawyers.
Only lawyers?
No, it's lawyers and investigators in the first fiscal. It's lawyers and investigators in the first fiscal year. In out fiscal years, there'll be additional clerical support staff added.
So how many lawyers? How many investigators?
The current plan is of those 17 lawyers at different levels of seniority.
17 lawyers, some supervisors, I assume, in that mix, and then 3 investigators?
Yes.
And you think that's the appropriate mix?
Yeah, I think this really gives us a chance to thrive as we move forward.
What we're seeing, Councilmember, unsurprising, is we take on bigger firms like Extra Space, a publicly traded firm. these are serious companies, they're serious lawyers, and we need to be sure that in settlement negotiations, if they don't go well, we can take them to court.
Right.
For that, we simply need.
You got a lawyer up.
We got a lawyer up.
Okay. Okay. That's good. And then you don't have out year projections because you just want to see how the staffing goes.
I'm sorry, can you say that again?
So you don't, because you've 20 for this year, but you don't have projections what you're going to do next year.
I mean, I think we do have a sense. I'm a little hesitant because obviously as the year progresses, there may be decisions made to move.
You may shift some
You may
staffing.
shift things around. So I think we do have a general sense. I don't think that's necessarily ready for discussion because I don't want to
Yeah, I appreciate
calcify
that.
it right now.
Okay. And then Office of Labor Policy and Standards, you said what's 29, 10 investigators, we said.
Right, so I've written it down since you asked me the
Yay.
question. So we've got 11 lawyers, 10 investigators, and 8 data scientists, and that includes the supervisory staff in each category.
Great. And you think both sections of the department, that is going to get you in a sufficient place to deal with any backlog and all these future, issues that are coming forward. We have 10,000 potential Uber, Lyft deactivations coming down the pike. We're having 2,000 new potential street vendor licenses, not to mention laundry workers, not to mention security guards, not to mention every other thing that we're going to do. I know Councilmember Kaman talked about last mile. There's things that are coming, that might be coming forward. I want to be clear that, do you think there will not be a backlog when consumers and workers are coming to your office? We're not going to tell them, wait 6 months now when we're staffed up.
That's our projection at this point, Chair. I'll say those numbers we just rattled off are, of course, for FY27. There are additional infusions for all of my colleagues here in FY28 and then further in FY29. But again, we're going to be continuously evaluating this. If Delivery Protection Act passes, as I hope it does, we're going to have additional needs for lines. We're going to be monitoring the student loan marketplace. We might need additional OTPS for outreach there. So we're going to be monitoring this. We could see a big spike, an unexpected spike. We've already seen an increase in worker complaints in 2026. That is going to make it harder to close the backlog. But again, we have accounted for that in this budget. But we have to be monitoring our complaints, as we will be, and we have to be monitoring our backlog, as we are, and of course monitoring the new laws that are coming online.
And can you just update us? Obviously, I'm pushing to give you more money, so here you go. But I would just be concerned that we get past the budget and then we see in the summer or in the fall that you've hired up and there still is a backlog, where in January there's a backlog because you've hired up and you've trained people. So I'm just concerned that can we get ongoing updates about where staffing is, making sure that if there is that 6-month backlog or it's been reduced to 3 months or.
Right. Certainly, and the goal again is to see that backlog fall. And again, it's a little bit like going uphill because the complaints are rising. So we need to hire faster than the complaints are rising and deal with the backlog. And with respect to certain laws like deactivation, as you mentioned, there's going to be a look-back period. So the thousands of workers who were deactivated over the last 6 years, 6 years are going to be able to have those 6 or 5, 7 years are going to be able to have those deactivations revisited. So we made the best projection we could based on the numbers we see now, and that's going to change to some degree in a couple months, and we're happy to keep you updated on that.
I'd appreciate that.
Yes, Chair. Just to echo the Commissioner, we're happy to provide you updates there, and then also we have other periods in the budgetary cycle, like the November plan, where we can always come back and discuss more with OMB our new needs.
Thank you. And so grocery store delivery services like Instacart, you granted a temporary exemption for minimum wage payments through July 2026. Are you guys prepared to ensure full compliance with that in July?
Yes, we are, and it's my expectation that the delivery apps will be as well.
Yes, absolutely. So we are getting reports from Instacart. We're already monitoring their wage payments, their work time, trip time and on-call time, and just for the record, no full exception, right? They are required to pay the full minimum pay rate for all trip time and will be required soon to pay for all on-call time as well.
And what kind of staffing do you think that's going to require on your behalf?
I mean, luckily in this area, you know, it is already part of laws that we're enforcing on the minimum pay rate. So we already have structures in place to analyze the reports that we get from apps. And so that fits in neatly with work that we're already doing to monitor Uber, to monitor DoorDash. And we are already doing that with Instacart too.
So you don't expect a flood over the summer of new complaints?
You never know when you're going to get a flood. You know, I mean, an app can change a certain procedure in a way that confuses workers, whether or not it's legal. But, you know, one of the benefits of the structure of these laws is that we're able to watch and get the data reporting from the apps on a monthly basis, so that we're not only relying on complaints from workers, but also able to watch and identify issues through those reports.
So you know, with the new street vendor licenses, there's going to be some penalties associated with that, and I know mostly DSNY is going to be doing enforcement. And what role do you think you're going to play in coordination with DSNY on that level of enforcement? And what role do you think you'll play in the new licensing scheme on the enforcement side?
Our real role is to stand side by side with the with the street vendors and help to bring them out of the shadows into the New York economy with licenses. So certainly I can see a role for us educating people along with SVP, along with council members who I know are interested in this. But in terms of day-to-day enforcement, for example, the sanitation code, we're going to leave that to DSNY and health.
Yeah, I'm worried about people not knowing, right? So I'm worried about like your role into ensuring that the small businesses understand to avoid the enforcement. You know, nothing to speak against my district or some people in my community. I can see someone not liking a new vendor on some street corner and calling every day, and I want to make sure that those vendors don't get to a place where they could have enforcement issues.
Well, if someone doesn't have a license, that would be our responsibility. But again, our goal, the reason our administration reversed the last administration to endorse this bill is we want people to get licenses. We want small businesses to thrive. So, you know, again, we have a statutory responsibility to make sure folks are licensed. But at the end of the day, the orientation of our agency is squarely on the side of the street vendors who the council decided, and we agree, it's long overdue they get licenses.
And Chair, I would mention as well, I think a lot of the resources that you're talking about, you know, the Division of Street Vendor Services at SBS is actually, they're revamping their website to include a lot of education materials that has included feedback from individual agencies like DCWP, DOHMH, and DSNY to ensure that vendors understand kind of the rules of the road, including mapping that's out there, as well as plain language descriptions of their restrictions on the street.
Yeah, you know, as you know, I mentioned this earlier. I'll just flag again this kind of outreach will be critical to avoid these kind of enforcement issues, and I would love to see the administration commit to some of those resources to these organizations who are going to help prevent people from getting these fines and fees and be affected by enforcement.
Absolutely, and I'm happy to go with you in our district to some of our local street vendors to get the word out.
Great, we'll schedule that. I'm happy to do it.
Chair certainly heard on this issue you're raising about funding, so we'll make sure to raise that with our colleagues at OMB and City Hall.
Yeah, so I just want to go back to junk fees. And what are you seeing now on junk fees based on the executive order? Where are you seeing violations? Kind of how are those moving forward? Are you seeing a spike since the enactment?
We're paying more attention to it. I think it's how. Let me put it this way. I think in the past we looked at different categories: employment agencies, immigration services providers, et cetera, et cetera. Now we're sort of creating a new category. The way we're thinking about it: who are charging unlawful fees? So we did a warning blitz with employment agencies. We did a warning blitz with used car dealers. We did a warning blitz with immigration service providers. We did the warning blitz and the rule with hotels. And I can tell you now, we also co-chair the junk fee task force, We just held a meeting yesterday on this with other agencies, and I don't want to get ahead of the mayor or other agencies, but I can tell you other agencies are doing a really thoughtful job of identifying junk fees that, frankly, we wouldn't necessarily have visibility into, but because, say, I won't name any departments, but that our sister agencies have deep visibility into and understanding of their authority. So I'm very optimistic about the trajectory on this. We're working very hard both on enforcement and rulemaking. And I think Mike wants to add some more.
Yeah, just some additional color to add that, Chair and council members. As the commissioner alluded to, this has been sort of not always labeled as a junk fee, but core to our work over the last several years. Like, we've brought 3 cases recently at oath over the last 18 months against licensed employment agencies for charging illegal advance fees. What are those? Those are just junk fees by another name. Similarly, we have great laws passed by this council, supplemented by our rules on financing disclosures and what can be charged by used car dealerships. We call them secondhand automobile dealers. And we are constantly bringing cases where that's a core part of the investigation. We actually have a major trial ongoing right now at the Office of Administrative Trials and Hearings against a major dealership, Victory Mitsubishi. We, of course, passed as the commissioner alluded to, the hotel junk fee rule, and we're monitoring the complaints. I'm always talking about the consumer complaints. Please give us complaints. We're monitoring complaints. We're filing our first summons under that rule imminently. So this is something that we're always looking at. We've always looked at traditionally, and this sort of been very helpful to name this exact sort of concept and to really focus our work. And let me just underscore, the executive order was very helpful in doing that, and also looking forward to the different types of junk fees and pricing violations that may not exist. It really transcends just narrow junk fees, but sort of the ideas that we've been talking about surveillance pricing, dynamic pricing. These are sort of the new generation of how consumers are harmed on a day-to-day basis. And so we have
You're getting in front of our hearing in a couple weeks.
I know, I'm sorry, you got me going. And it's like our ear to the ground on that. And so we're looking for trends, and sort of this commitment by the admin is this type of issue, junk fees, pricing. These are things that we are going to dedicate resources to now in a way that's really going to result in dividends for New Yorkers.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and hopefully you'll have the resources you need to be doing that work. Summer, so it sounds like you've moved forward with not extending their contract to do student loan work in our city for general New Yorkers.
For city residents, we're continuing the program for city employees.
And then who's picking up that support to ensure that city residents who have student loans, anyone on the dais, anyone's got student loans, how are people going to be able to access the services? What kind of outreach are you doing in communities to make sure people are aware of this issue?
This is a very high priority for us. I think I've been having conversations with our folks every day or almost every day on this for weeks now, especially our financial empowerment folks. Number of points. First, our financial empowerment centers not only the counselors are not only trained on student loans, they're trained on credit card debt, auto debt, all manners of debt. One push we're really going to make this summer, so to speak, is pushing more New Yorkers into our financial empowerment centers. We do have capacity there, and again, we can provide, those are one-on-one, personalized, in-person services, and they can provide really, our financial empowerment says it can take a holistic look at New Yorkers' financial health, not just student loans, but credit card debt, medical debt, et cetera, to put people on a firmer path forward. We're also working with Summer to make sure that there's no abrupt disruption to people's accounts. We want to make sure that people continue to be served into the summer, and that then we can transition them into vital services. But the fact of the matter is, and this is why I think Intro 177 was so critical, we are facing a huge cliff in New York City with the Trump administration's, I think, reckless treatment of and callous treatment of student loan borrowers. It is critical that we redouble our efforts to get the word out around resources that the city is available. That is something our outreach team is working very hard on. It's also critical we work with partners in the state. I've talked to you in the past about working with DFS. That is something we are planning to do. Stay tuned on that, about making sure we're reaching the people most likely to face default. We've had meetings with EdCap. The state, I think, in a very wise move, significantly expanded funding for EdCap to expand those services. EdCap to us is not a rival at all. It is a complement. I really think this requires an all-hands-on-deck response by the city and the state, because the federal government isn't here to help. It's here to make people's lives worse.
I appreciate that, hearing that. I know we've talked about this before, and we'd love to partner in doing those kind of outreach events, whether they go to financial empowerment centers, some of our offices, just getting the word out.
Yeah.
And I hope that we can start doing that in the next few weeks.
Absolutely. I think we've had conversations already about that.
And the last thing I want to just talk about is docketing, and I'm wondering kind of, how many cases are you docketing judgments for workers? What does that look like? Is that being successful or not? Are people getting their money back? Like, is the docketing power and authority working for the agency?
Carla stole my table of contents, so it's taken me a minute. Do you want to jump in on there, Liz?
Thankfully, it's a power we very rarely need to use. We have a very, very high rate of collection in the Office of Labor Policy and Standards on our worker protection cases. This is in part because we settle almost all of our cases settle, and they settle with very strong terms to ensure that companies actually pay. We require companies to sign a confession of judgment in almost all of our settlements, and always when there's a payment plan. And so that ensures we're able to obtain the money for workers.
So do you have any cases where you've had to docket judgments?
We have, and have had some success in actually collecting them. I'm hesitating only because some even come from before that law went into effect. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is an important tool. Thank you for, in your prior role, sort of leading the charge to get us docketing authority. And I think that it hasn't come up all that often, but it is valuable when it has happened.
All right. Well, I want to thank you, and Chair, I'm finished with my questions. Thank you.
Okay, and with that, I think we are done with this portion of this hearing. So thank you so much, Commissioner, and to everyone on your team. And we're just going to take a couple minutes to transition over to EDC. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Chairs. Thank you, the council. If we could arrest these people.